Welcome, Arizona Cardinals fans, to the Revenge of the Birds wrap-up show. I'm your host, Seth Cox, and with me tonight, one of my lead writers from Revenge of the Birds, Tyler Nickel. Tough way to start the season, Tyler. You were at the game. Was it as bad as everybody said with the amount of New England fans, or was that just hyperbole?
It's probably a little hyperbole, but there were definitely their fair share of New England fans there. But it was mostly red.
The Cardinals lose to a Tom Brady, Rob Gronkowski, two offensive tackles, and Rob Ninkovich-less New England Patriots. Is the overall kind of it's just one game response by the media and fans, is it warranted, or is this something that you should kind of say, okay, well, this is kind of similar to last year and we saw how that worked out?
Yeah, I don't know yet. I think the team started a little slow in preseason, so I think it could be rust, but I also think they didn't look very good in the preseason either when they were on first team was on the field. So I think it's a little up in the air. I'm not ready to jump off a cliff, but I'm not ready to just write it off. I think it's somewhere in between.
Yeah, I think it's cause for concern, but I wouldn't necessarily say panic. I wrote about this for tomorrow. I think there needs to be more of an overreaction, especially from the Cardinals. But there's been too little of or too much of. It's just one game. We saw this last year. It's not a big deal because in the end, what happened last year was exactly what happened in the Rams game and what happened in the Pittsburgh Steelers game. You punch the Cardinals in the mouth, they get rattled, and they never seem to find their rhythm, either offensively or defensively. I mean, last night, for instance, two drives that were two offensive scoring drives totaling 43 and a half yards, an average of. Then they had their one nice drive of 77 yards, but the rest of the offense just was, not great. And then you look at it defensively, they got stops, but then when the offense really needed them to come up with another stop, they got pushed around.
Yeah, the defense looked all out of sorts all night to me. They started off just super slow. Nothing was happening. They weren't creating pressure as they had hoped with Chandler Jones being added. They did have the strip sack fumble. That was a nice play. Other than that, I feel like the team was mostly kept out of check the whole night with that short passing game. And you know what? It's something the Cardinals have always seemingly struggled with, is it not? The short, quick passing games always seem to beat the Cardinals. Speedy little receivers always seem to have a good game against the Cardinals. And Julian Edelman was that guy last night.
And I got in touch with PFF. I wanted to figure this out because I saw that take a lot today. And I'm going to write about this for tomorrow, but if you listen to the recap, you'll get a little heads up. Garoppolo was getting rid of the ball in 2.31 seconds. Brady's average was 2.35 seconds last year. So nothing changed. Literally,
Right.
Nothing changed. This wasn't, they game plan to make sure Jimmy Garoppolo didn't hold. No, that's how the Patriots play football.
Right.
And we saw, a great defense in Denver bully that. And we saw a good defense in Arizona struggle with that. And I think that's the chasm we're at right now. It's not saying that Arizona can't get to become a great defense, but right now they're clearly not a great defense, and it's because, as you said, they lack the interior pass rush, and their perimeter pass rushers, their edge guys, Chandler Jones and Marcus Golden, are not necessarily speed pass rushers. They're not Von Miller. I don't think either one of them is even a DeMarcus Ware at this point. So they have talent, but they don't have the quote unquote elite talent to combat, like you said, that short passing game.
Right. I mean, you got to be blazing quick off that edge to negate that short passing game. Otherwise, your pass rush needs to come from the interior, and that just didn't happen. Frosty Rucker went down with an injury. He might be out for a few weeks now. Kim
And
Dichie's still
I was
learning on the
disappointed
job.
with Kim Diche's snap count, 15 snaps. I mean, I know he jumped off sides on that one play, but
Right.
it's so weird to me, the Arians doghouse and how it works. Like, I can't figure it out because Kim Diche jumped off sides and basically was missing the rest of the night. But Brandon Williams was burnt toast several times and never a move was made.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like he didn't make an error that cost the team directly, like a penalty. I don't know. I can't explain it either, to be honest with you. But who's gonna replace Brandon Williams though? Justin Bethel looked like he was hobbling around on that foot playing special teams, and then I mean, who's going to come in and play for Brandon Williams? Kim Dichie, they at least have so much depth along that defensive line.
Yeah, and that was something we thought, except they only had 6 defensive tackle or defensive linemen last night, and then Frosty Rucker went down, and they ended up playing, basically um, 4. I mean, you
Yeah,
saw you saw Peters and Gunter, and then you saw um, Morrow
Camp.
and Campbell, and that was it. I mean, once Rucker went down, that was the basis of their defensive line rotation. I think another underrated aspect of what happened last night was the misuse of Dayon Buchanan. Um, Too many times you saw him running in space, trying to
Yeah,
chase slot wide receivers, backs out. You know, we talked about this when he was drafted, so 2 years ago. That's not his strength. His strength is coming downhill. Asking him to chase people is just it's a recipe for what happened last night, where they're going to complete a lot of passes short. Um, I think that's what you want to see in the next game, because they're going to go up against an even better quarterback in Jameis Winston next week, who was just on fire against a bad Atlanta Falcons team. Let's be honest, but it was still in Atlanta, and he just looked fantastic.
right. And I thought that was the reason, going back to your point of Buchanan chasing around receivers, I thought that was kind of the reason they got Tyvon Branch, wasn't it? To do something like that?
Yeah, and then the defensive rotation was odd last night, and I wrote about that, in kind of my overreaction piece. What took so long to make a defensive adjustment? Like, they marched down the field the first time. Okay, Brandon Williams missed the signal that he had man coverage. He let the guy go allegedly into zone coverage, and nobody was there. Um, they march down the field again. The next possession, they have to settle for a field goal. You get a couple stops here and there after that, but there was never a point where you felt like, all right, the defense is turning it on. I mean,
Yeah.
how many games do you see a team lose when they win the turnover battle and they don't make any mistakes in terms of turnovers? I mean, the Cardinals protected the ball. Palmer tried to give a couple away, but for the most part, it was just inefficient offense and an inability to get off the field on third down on defense.
Yeah, what were they? 10 of 16 on third down. I mean, that's inexcusable. That's ridiculous. And I thought I thought they were a little too cautious with Tyrann Mathieu as well. They played him high safety all night. I mean, you can stick. That's what you have. Why'd you get rid of Rashad Johnson if you're going to do that? Why don't you let Tyvon Branch do that? I mean, there's so many other guys that can do that. Just play single high safety. Matthew should have been down in the box, taking out these crossing routes. I don't know. That's just kind of what I saw.
Yeah, it was an interesting game plan. It was one of those things where they got out game plan from the jump. I mean, offensively, defensively, special teams wise, they were just out coached on all levels of the field. And that was the one thing that I said in my previews. I said in any article I wrote, like, that 7.5 point spread was a joke by the time it got there. New England's too well coached. Like,
Yeah,
they could have you and I out there, and they'll figure out a way to get things done. I mean, that's just how well Bill Belichick does in these circumstances. So, um, David Johnson, Larry Fitzgerald, I thought looked excellent. The offensive line was okay at times. I thought Arians didn't do a great job running the ball. 19 rushing attempts.
That it's ridiculous. That drive in the second quarter where they took about 6 minutes off the clock and it resulted in one of Larry's touchdowns. That was one of my favorite drives. I texted you guys this in the group text last night. That was one of my favorite drives of the Bruce Arians era. And then after that, they were done. That was like one of the last few times they ran the ball the rest of the game. It didn't make any sense. And then in the final quarter, when they're driving down the field, Larry Fitzgerald is on fire. They can't cover him to save their lives. And then all of a sudden he's throwing fades to John Brown, and then he's got a ridiculous screenplay drawn up for Andre Ellington, who they need to find the way to get the ball to more.
Right.
Well.
No carries last night. And Arian's comments today, and we can kind of end on this. Arian's comments today were, I didn't get it. Like, we don't want David Johnson on the field as much or getting as many touches. What? Like, I get the idea of maybe trying to save him a little bit for the postseason, but you also got to win ball games. And in a situation like that where you're down and, you're losing, like, he's probably the best player on your offense right now.
Oh, yeah.
Get him the ball. Get him touches. Like go away from your love of the passing game and your undying belief in Carson Palmer and run the football.
Yeah, that's what I mean. The second quarter, it was a beautiful series. Just easy passes, run the ball, and then they were just done after that. They just got away from it, and it made no sense.
Next week, Tampa Bay Bucks in Glendale, 1:05 kickoff Arizona time. They have to come out and execute quickly. You don't want to start this season 0-2. I mean, other than that, there's really not much else to say.
I mean, the secondary's got to be better next week. Jameis this past week, I know it was against Atlanta. Their defense isn't great, but Jameis was insane. He was really good. So you can't afford – Jameis is better than Garoppolo. Not that it's a similar offense or anything, but Dirk Cutter is going to come into town looking to let Jameis go free, and they got to stop that.
All right, Cardinals fans, well, thanks for listening. We'll be back next week to wrap up, hopefully, a Cardinals victory over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'm Seth Cox. That's Tyler Nickel. Thanks for listening.